Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. We created this podcast to share the wonderful people we get to interact with, we get to meet, we get to know, and most importantly, get to learn from. So I invite you to join us on this journey here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. Well, let's roll here. I'm here today with the man of the year, and you guys have a great story, and we've been following it. One of the things we write about here, we're talking today with Matt and Aaron, Matt Ritter and Aaron Karo. One of the things that we write about a lot, research a lot, and we've spoken about quite a bit is your area of subject. That is adult relationships, particularly adult male relationships. It seems to me, not as a scientist, but as a florist, that women have an easier time making and maintaining friendships. And getting the idea to chat with you guys sparked a lot of conversation around the office here at Flowers, particularly among outspoken women who are nearby here, who explained to me how, yes, it's easier in some ways, but when they're working moms, it really is a struggle for them too to maintain friendships. The relief seems to come in when, like you'll find out now, Matt, is when your kids start going to school and they start playing sports. That changes their network of friends to be other people who are victims on the same sidelines of the sporting events or the school events. But your story about being serious about, neither of you are serious, but you are serious about the idea of maintaining the right balance in life, and particularly maintaining relationships of long standing. Now, you have 9 guys who've been friends since what, the beginning of high school?
Second grade.
Second grade. First grade, you weren't that talkative, huh?
Well, I moved there in second grade, so that was the beginnings of it.
Matt likes to think it started when he moved. We didn't know. No one knew anyone. No one had friends until he got there. No, I was there. I had friends.
The pre-Matt era doesn't matter to me.
So Aaron, he shows up and says, "Oh my God, I invented this idea of friendship." And you guys will say, "Wait a minute, there were 8 of us for a long time, kindergarten and first grade, and now we got to put up with this interloper who says he invented the idea of friendship in the second grade."
Well, as you'll see, and as you already know, when Matt enters a town, enters a room, everything descends into chaos. But only a few of us predated Matt, but a good half of them came Matt after. So he is right. He was the glue that brought us together.
And tell me, how do you spend your day jobs now?
Well, we are both comedians and screenwriters. So we are, during the day, we're writing scripts, we're performing, and Matt works in features and television. And, I mostly work in television. So, the podcast is like almost our 7th job.
But also a good excuse to stay connected, I guess.
A great excuse to stay connected. I mean, I would say our friendship has grown tremendously since we launched the podcast about friendship. Our theory was kind of, I would say, not fully baked at the time, but we just knew that we had this great friend crew and that we did something right. We were like, hey, accidentally, we know what we're doing because we're in our 40s and we've managed to maintain lifelong friendships. And we kept hearing, people would hear about our Peter Luger's dinners. People would say, oh, I wish I did something like that. Oh, I'm so jealous. Oh, I wish I had stayed connected with my friends. And we started realizing like, oh,
this is unique.
Like we actually learned how to do this, and most people do not have this. So we just had this idea. Why don't we teach people how to make and maintain friendships, and along the way, become friendship experts ourselves, kind of a little bit of fake it till you make it on that front. But now suddenly we're like, oh, we actually really do have this expertise in friendship.
And having developed the expertise, or at least explored it, talked about it a lot, how long have you had the podcast now?
We were almost a little over a year. We launched we did it on the anniversary of our Peter Luger's dinner, which is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
So let's dive into that. Aaron was saying he comes back to Long Island at least a couple of times a year, once always around Thanksgiving. He says mostly to go to his dinner, and oh yes, and then there's Thanksgiving a couple of days later. Tell us how this tradition of Peter Luger's was born.
Yes, so this was our 20th annual dinner a couple of weeks ago. So basically it started as a Friendsgiving dinner. And that's also one of the thrusts that me and Matt talk about, which is that Friendsgiving should be a national holiday because this is something we could talk to you about. Every other holiday is an official holiday. You got Mother's Day and Father's Day, but we think Friendsgiving should be the next one. Maybe there should be a bouquet about it. Co-branding, Man of the Year, Friendsgiving, bouquet. I'm just thinking this off the top of my head. But so it started
We
as
can also
Friendsgiving.
make up a special gift basket.
Yeah,
I
that would be
like
great.
it.
A
I
little
like it.
trophy mat, maybe like a bottle
We're
of.
talking
Yeah.
T-shirts here, a bottle of something of your own desires, maybe a box of cigars. What do you think?
I'm in.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Let's talk about this offline. Me and Matt have some ideas. I could say I know Matt so well, I could see the gears turning behind those eyes. And so it started very organically. We go to Peter Luger Steakhouse in Brooklyn, which I'm sure you know, but for your listeners, I think it's like the second oldest steakhouse in New York from the 1860s or 1870s, very famous. And
And they
as we're
haven't remodeled since.
and the
No, but
same
that's what we like. That's what we like about it.
right, and it's got the same waiters, right, Matt? They've been there since like before we were born. And we kind of jokingly would say, "Oh, you know what? This was Brian's year. Brian, you're the man of the year." It was a joke. It was just an informal conversation. Now, as Matt will tell you, I'm kind of the historian of the group. I've got all the photos. I've got all the records, and so I would just jot down in my at that point probably a Palm Pilot, Matt. Oh, we made Brian the man of the year in 2004 or whatever. And after a few years, we're like, oh, this is fun. Let's get a trophy. And then it just skyrocketed from there.
So each year, the new man of the year gets his name on the trophy, and he holds it for a year.
And what a fun year you have with it.
It seems like there's different roles. Aaron, you said you're the historian for the group. Are there other informal roles that people sort of take on within the group? Is there one guy always comes with the
Well,
worst joke?
yeah. I mean, they would call me the friend of pleasure, if you will. I'm usually the guy that's planning the post game after the dinner, slash the guy who knows what's going down in Las Vegas, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, every friend group needs to be filled to have a full, healthy friend group. Aaron, we call him our friend of utility. Sometimes you need somebody who's, kind of like the mother hen of the group, responsible, making sure everybody gets home in their Uber safely.
Yes.
You've got your secret keeper, the vault. Karo will say he's the vault, but I don't know. He's got loose lips lately.
Everybody married, or is there a bachelor or two in the group?
I'm the only
Bachelor, you're talking to him.
I'm the only bachelor in the group, Jen. Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Has that always been the case?
We've had a divorce. We've had early marriages and kind of later in life marriages, but now I'm really the last man standing.
And how has this time been for you guys in your careers with what your industry's gone through this year with work stoppages at all?
To say this podcast has been a blessing. So the other part of the reason we were doing the pod is, I've been very successful, and so has Aaron, in traditional TV and film. There are so many gatekeepers to that. You can write a great script, get a great cast. You can even get financing. You're ready to shoot, and things can fall apart. Right. This year, we both had a lot of things that stalled out for 6 months. This podcast we built out of my back house. We financed it ourselves. We launched straight to our fans, and our fans found us, and we connected, and the media found us, and all of our press has been organic. And so it's just been this amazing thing where, if you build it, they will come.
What kinds of tips do you give your fans who like to listen to your podcast about how they can maintain relationships? You guys live in different geographies. You come together. Do you use social media to stay connected? Do you have a text string where you share certain kinds of things on it just with this group of 9 guys?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of our best practices. One is to create a ritual. That's all the man of the year dinner is it's a tradition, it's a ritual. You don't have to have a trophy. It doesn't have to be a steak dinner. The key is, that me and Matt always say, it's recurring on the calendar. So if you and your buddies say, listen, every third Thursday of the month, we're just going to get a drink. It's on the calendar. The spouses know. And then it's easy to get together and you say, this is sacrosanct. We're not going to cancel this. One thing we also say is, you're talking about social media, occasionally you'll get like like an old photo pops up on Facebook, or, it shows you like something from like 10 years ago. And we say, just like text that picture to all the people in the in the photo. It's a good way to get a text chain started.
Aaron's very good about this. I would say this is a role that he has in the friend group, which is telling people what's going on in other people's lives. I think that's a really useful tip. Not everybody in the group like talking to each person. So somebody gets a promotion and they may not have shared it with the whole group. Aaron's the kind of guy in the group who's like, hey, you should send out a note about, this guy, he got a promotion. It would be cool if you reach out to him. And he kind of like will let the group know about that. And I think that's important because a lot of times people start thinking about, it's like they would love to check in and they would love to celebrate you, but they're just not aware. So we always say a big tip. I think this is not just for maintaining friendships on the positive way, but to avoid the pitfalls of friendship. Friends are not mind readers. You think they're mad at you, they may not be mad at you. They may be mad at you and you don't know. You have to communicate. Otherwise, you don't know what's actually going on.
But I think that's a really important role you play, Aaron, in the group there. In a couple of my groups, I play that role because sometimes people don't want to brag on themselves, but you find out about something, you pass it around. In one of my groups, we had a guy just had a knee replacement, and he didn't want to tell everybody he was doing it, but one other guy in the group made it a point of staying in touch with him, making sure. And amazingly, he had it done in Chicago. And amazingly, he walked out of the hospital 4 hours later with just a cane. And so his wife took a video and we shared that. And he didn't want to send it around, but now he's given into it. And there's about 8 of us on that text group. And we're all congratulating him, checking in with him at the different holidays, checking to see how his recovery's coming. But he didn't start it. It's just one guy he had one-to-one contact with said, hey, we should share this with the group. Don't be keeping this to yourself. And so now surrendered to it. And he's sharing directly.
We're trying to look, we say that thank you, gateway emotion to I love you. We know that men are not suddenly going to wake up one day and start telling their friends they love them. So we're trying to start small, like show a little gratitude. Start saying thank you to your friends. These little things to open people up, like the stoic lone wolf way of living of previous generations of men, it's just not working and it's not healthy. And deep down, nobody really wants that.
The Clint Eastwood syndrome.
Look, I think there's a time for it. Your life, there's a time and place, and there's a way to go about your life where you can uphold those values without just completely isolating yourself from people that you love. And men were taught that if they had a good job, they had a family, and they had a good house, that was all they needed to be content. And we contend that that's BS, that women always knew that friendship was a part of a content, well-rounded life. And now men are learning it belatedly, but it's not too late.
In my life, I'm a generation older than you guys, have kids your age. Golf plays an important role in maintaining adult male relationships. I could play golf on a Saturday, and which is just an excuse to socialize with the 3 other guys that I want to spend time with. But if I call them up and say, hey, why don't we get together on Saturday morning? We'll shop and we'll have lunch. I'm not going to get return calls. I say, let's get together, play golf. Boom, it's done. It's an easy text chain, and then we're out. But so that plays an important role in my life. But people your age aren't playing golf as much. You're having families younger. You're much more involved in your kids' lives than I was. And so it seems like you have to be a little bit more deliberate.
Well, it's interesting because we talk about golf a lot on the pod. I do not golf, and Matt is, I want to say, a aspirational golfer. Like he's golfing.
I'm a shit golf.
Yeah. Can we curse on your pod, Jim?
Yeah, I guess we can.
All right. Well, I'm a bad golfer. You can use that second.
Yeah. So I struggle with that because I've said this to Matt, when some of the guys go golfing, they're not calling me. Not that I want them to, because I think golf is stupid, but it does motivate me, and to some extent, Matt, to come up with something different. That could be. Oh, you know what we used to say, Matt? We used to say, "Find your golf." We got to start saying that again.
Find your golf.
You use a term that I think is really strong, and that's social fitness. What do you mean by social fitness?
We talk about mental health, obviously. We talk about our physical health. Are you working out? Have you lost weight? We don't really talk about our social health. So social fitness is the strength and health of your relationships, and specifically for us, your friendships. Who are the people that you go to when you need something? Who are the people that come to you when they need something? Can you be vulnerable with your friends? How many friends do you have? Are they in the same location as you? How often are you seeing them? And that's something you can get to through what we call social inventory, which is we suggest you do it around your birthday, which is that just
Yep.
make a list. It sounds crazy, but like I just have a list of my friends, and once a year I'll take a look at it when I'm inviting someone to something, and I'll say, oh, I haven't seen X in a while, or I've seen Y too much. And it's a good idea. It's good to just keep your social fitness in mind.
Yeah, and we kind of came up with a proprietary scorecard for that, so you could kind of just see where you're at on some of these things. It's like, oh, wow, I only have two friends. That's when did that happen? Or like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not vulnerable. I haven't even shared any with anybody that I lost my job. Why didn't I do that? What's wrong? What's going on with these relationships that I can't share that?
Well, or the other thing, you should make that list and you have 5 names on there and you look and you're honest with yourself and say, well, 2 of these names I haven't really had much contact with at all this year. So, who am I to say they're friends? I'm not investing at all. One of the things that we do here at Flowers is try and, with our newsletter and with our podcast, is tease out in people, hey, there's a calendared event coming up here. And yeah, it sounds hokey, but for example, last year, in earlier this year in March, it was a National Sons Day. And I had written, here's a good excuse for to reach out if you're a son or if you have a son, and make sure you at least call if you're not going to be around them physically, send them a text. And it was like 8 o'clock at night on Friday. My wife and I were in Florida, and I realized I hadn't followed my own advice. So I sat down, I have 2 sons and a son-in-law, and I sent them each a text telling them how I feel about them. And I got great responses from all 3 of them back that night. And I said to my wife, boy, following my own advice finally, I just had a great day, a great weekend, a great week, because just as exchange of emotion like that just filled me with joy. And so we use the calendar a lot just to prompt people to sit down and to be deliberate about investing in their relationships. And what we're doing with the new year is we're writing code now for a relationship management tool where we ask people, make an inventory. Here are the relationships I have that I want to continue to invest in. Here's half a dozen relationships that have waned. I really don't have much contact with them, but 3 of them I really want to reinvest in and reconnect and be deliberate about it. And here's 2 or 3 in the third column of people I don't have a relationship with now, but I want to, in my community, in my network, or at work. And we give you suggestions. And if we lay that on top of it will give you a digital tool that you can lay on top of your contact list. And we look at your traffic. And if in a month in, we say, by the way, you said you wanted to be deliberate about these 2 relationships you want to rekindle, but we haven't seen you reach out to them by phone, by text, by email. And one of them is living in Southern California, and we see that there was a big rain event in Southern California. You might want to check in and ask, hey, were you affected by this big rain event? So we give them tools and suggestions with an AI engine in it to think about, this is what you said you wanted to do, and we're going to help you to remind you and incent you and measure the frequency of contact. So at the end of the year, you follow through on your quote unquote resolutions. Make sense?
By the way, you and Aaron and I are very much aligned. Notion that you have to wait for your birthday to touch with these people, and so we have had this theory that men need sort of, it may not be organic. That's just not the way that we interact, right? Actually, we had my rabbi on, and he said that. He said, what do we need to do to get men together? He goes, you need some sort of manifested tool that you create to concoct to get men to interact on a regular basis. That's why we say tradition. But we, just on our pod, just started jokingly, Aaron does this. Aaron has been throwing all kinds of parties for people. When our buddy lost his job, he threw him an unemployment party. It's just this notion of gifting, of sending gifts. I send my friends, when I read a book that I like, I send it to all 9 of these guys now. And
That's
so
a great idea.
This idea of ways to connect, right? And I think gifts and being thoughtful, it's just a way of saying, hey, I want to continue this relationship, right? And it's just harder for men to do it organically. And so I think it's great if you're saying, hey, we're going to things on the calendar to just make it easier for us to do this thing that we really want to do, which is at the core of it is we want to continue and build and have this flourishing lifelong relationship.
It's my sister's birthday.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com.
They have tons of great birthday gifts.
Wow.
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 Happy birthday, baby.
Happy birthday!
Wow.
Yeah, me. I got to contain myself.
1-800-Flowers.
Celebrate the people you love.
Aaron, you're at a dinner. You're sitting next to someone you don't know well, either know of or they hear about your podcast. What kinds of questions, what kind of dialogue happens with that person next to you when they ask you about, tell me about this friendship thing you're doing?
Well, first thing I do is because Matt has hammered this into me, I pull up a QR code and I force them to sign up before they walk away. It says, Matt, always be closing. Always be closing.
They call me the velvet bulldozer. That's a name Karo coined.
He's charming but relentless. I know what Matt would say. So the first thing we say is that it's never too late. Because people say, well, I'm your age and I don't have my childhood friends. We didn't start it 20 years ago. Or someone for your generation. Well, we don't have, never too late. Never too late. You start a tradition tomorrow, in 5 years, you've been doing it for 5 years. We also say, and I know this is, one of Matt's favorite sort of piece of advice. People say that they don't have friends or they don't have close friends, but that's not usually true. Everybody has friends, has relationships, went to school with someone, has siblings. It's that you haven't watered those relationships. So when someone comes to us and they're lonely and we empathize, we say, first, let's actually take some social fitness and see, like, have you just not reached out to your old coworker and your buddy in a while? Because I would start there.
Yep.
And then we subscribe them to our YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I also will have them break out their phone and be like, who would even feeling like you wanted to text? Like, what's been holding you back from sending a text? Yeah. And I sometimes make it easier on them. I think sometimes the group text is easier than the individual text.
Oh, yes.
Like, say, Jim, you have a guy in your friend group that you've been wanting to reach out to, but for whatever reason, the longer the time goes by, the harder it is to just send that individual text. Sometimes it's easier to break the ice with part of a group, and you just first reestablish that you're both connected in that group, and then you take it offline from there.
That makes sense. So you guys send something you read funny or a joke or a cartoon or something that you see to the text group. I find there's a group that I see in the summertime. We have a beach house out east on Long Island, and there's a group of guys. We socialize together. We play golf together. And with COVID, I created a group text, or one of us created a group text, and we're sharing things all year long. And now we never used to get together in the wintertime, but now in a couple of weeks, we're getting together for our Men of the Year kind of dinner at a restaurant in Manhattan. And the comment's been made by a few people, the fact that we stay fresh on this group text, when we get back together in the spring, it's not like, I haven't seen you in 7 months. It's like, it's fresh. It never went away. And I find that's really helpful to keep us feeling connected, even though we may go 7 months without physically seeing one another. The fact that each of us is sharing something or commenting and throwing back on the group text, it makes us all feel closer, even if it's just in that text group.
Jim, I had a question about something we were talking about before, or maybe it was Matt, about giving gifts. Oh, you were talking about Son's Day. How specific are either 1-800-Flowers or one of your subsidiaries? Like, if we're going to get guys to give gifts, like, for instance, I just had my first colonoscopy. My buddy picked me up. I mean, I really owed him a thank you. Like, do we have something ready-made to send thank you for picking me up for my colonoscopy, or are we getting too specific here?
I think that's a really shitty way of looking at it.
is that a pun? Was that a joke? Okay.
Great. Pun intended.
Very good.
I mean, I'm trying to keep up with you guys. It's not easy.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
No, I'm serious though. I'm curious.
Well, we don't have anything specific, but what we preach all the time is, don't make it a burden on yourself to think of the perfect thing to do. Something is better than nothing. And even if it's nothing, a text, an email, a call, a shout out of some kind, just to say thanks. We don't do it often enough. I went to a guys group dinner last night. People come in from all over the country for this dinner. We went to a beautiful spot. American Express is opening up these really high-end exclusive clubs. And the first one they've opened is at the new One Vanderbilt in Manhattan, right across from the building right across the street from Grand Central. And they have a 52nd floor of this building. So it was a beautiful, clear night last night. and the views, it looks like you could reach out and touch the Chrysler building on one side, the Empire State Building on the other side. It's just spectacular setting. But we all get together, and one guy organizes it and pays for it. He's a terrific guy. And he's gathered this group of friends. And now we are a text group. We play golf a couple of times a year together in different parts of the country. It's just a wonderful group of people. One or two will drop out each year. One or two new ones will come in. And it just keeps it very dynamic. But I was chatting with him this morning because I called him to say, thanks for a wonderful dinner again last night. It's great to get together. And he said to me, he's surprised that he doesn't hear from some people. They don't say thank you. Just the way I grew up, how could you not reach out and be deliberate? Sometimes I'll send him a gift for that. We have at Harry and David, we have one of our brands, we have Harry and David Fine Meats. And so I have the top great, so I'll send him a box of fillets to his house.
Oh, that's a great one for men. That's a great one.
You know, because we all love steak, as you guys are evidenced by your trips to Peter Luger's. It's a simple thing to do, and you know everyone's going to appreciate it. But even if you don't think it's worthy of a gift or it doesn't rise to the occasion of a gift, at least text, at least call or send an email just to say thanks.
You know, it dovetails into something that we talked about. Sometimes men don't say anything when they don't know what to say. So not necessarily like this occasion, but a lot of time with grief, a lot of men don't show up for each other because they're not really sure what to say. Not just men, but a lot of people will say nothing because they're not really sure what to say. They don't know if they're going to offend. And we say sort of what you just said. It's always better to say something. Like it's better to send something than send nothing. It's better to say something than say nothing. People are not going to be offended by you saying a wrong thing. They're going to be offended by you not saying anything.
Just say, I'm not sure what to say, but I just wanted to be here for you.
Thinking of you. Exactly.
Yep. There's a subject I wanted to ask you guys about, and we were chatting about it here in the office recently. I said, 15 years ago, being a New Yorker, where, you know, ethnicity is right on our sleeves all the time, right? There was a lot more kissing, you know, and even in work settings, people lean in and give you the air kiss kind of thing. And I noticed now among my age group and your age group, my son's age groups, a lot more hugging. Is it just a New York thing? Is it a West Coast thing too? It's like, I want to show you that we're close. It's the hug it out, the lean in, the half a hug. Is that a thing?
Well, we've had actually a very hot debate on our show about the bro hug.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the kind of one handshake and then you pull them in.
Exactly.
And we had another guest in our podcast, Justin Baldoni, an actor, an activist, and he doesn't like the bro hug because then your hands are in between your chests, so your chests aren't touching. He feels it's not close enough. And I think me and Matt think anytime you're hugging, a hug is fine. Let's not get too, weeds. I know you talking about.
I like the hug. I like the hug where you also pat after.
Oh, I love a pat.
That's what I like. I like the.
But Jim, are you talking about the kiss like Tony Soprano?
No, he's saying our generation of men are we're hugging more. We're hugging more.
Yeah,
our generation.
It just seems like in the last couple of years, it's risen to an expression of connectiveness, of specialness beyond the handshake. It's not like the business handshake. This is someone you have a relationship with.
Yeah, I mean, I think our generation of men is definitely becoming closer to our vulnerable side. We're opening up a little more. I mean, personally, we talk about this on the pod. I hadn't said I love you to any of my friends until a couple of years ago. And, again, that's just something that we think is men were just taught, they were raised a certain way, and every generation that changes a little bit. And I think, men are being raised to be a little more physically affectionate.
Yes.
I think that's
now
great.
I can't get Matt to stop saying he loves me every day. I love you, buddy. Love you. XO. I'm like, you get it. It's fine.
Enough already.
He loves it. He loves it. He loves it. He can't get it. He can't get enough of it.
A buddy of mine since passed, way too young in age. He retired. He was a very, very successful Wall Street guy. He's one of my favorite people. And 2 years later, I get a call from him. He's back. He's a vice chairman of another investment bank. I said, Bob, what'd you go back to work for? He goes, after 2 years, I had nothing to talk about. My friends have stopped returning my calls. So I had to go back to work to maintain friends. You work in a peculiar career where you'll be isolated for a while, and then you'll be around a lot of people for a long time, and then you go away and it's a different group. So that's got to present different kinds of challenges of relationship management and maintenance.
I think everybody in the workplace has different challenges than they had a few years ago with remote, hybrid, et cetera. I think a lot more jobs are becoming kind of like our creative field, which has always been isolating at times. Then you're on set, or then you're with some people in an office, and it's really fun. Look, I love being around people. That's the one thing I miss. I was a corporate lawyer. The people say, "Do you miss anything?" I miss the paycheck, and I miss the lunches and the drink and the after work drinks. So I'm a hyper social person. I find that very challenging, and I think, again, with the workplace being the way it is now, it's presenting new challenges for relationships where you have to be more thoughtful about it because it affects your mental health. We're having this epidemic of loneliness, and I think to that is that people aren't making the same level of work friends that they were making before, weren't seeing people on a daily basis.
Or meeting a potential life partner. I mean,
absolutely, that was the spot. That was the place.
Yeah, all the time. Some would be in bars, yes, but I think that was a small number. I think the highest percentage place that people met was at work, right?
My wife up at an alumni event.
Is that right? Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm still single, because I haven't had a job in 21 years.
Talk to me about Friendsgiving. You kidded about that earlier on. Do you think that's something we could really do?
We're not kidding. Not kidding.
No.
That was not a joke. Not a joke. That's our life mission.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned National Sunday, but our friends are getting short shrift. I mean, it's such an important relationship, and Matt, always brings up that people don't even consider friendship a relationship. You think of your boyfriend, you think of your mom, but like your friends are one of the most important relationships, and so
certainly for our mental health.
One of the jumping off points for the podcast, and I'm sure you've seen it, is the Harvard 85-year study. And they basically determined that the number one correlation, as you know, is with health, happiness, and longevity is relationships. And friendship is one of the pillars. So
yeah, I also want to say this thing about Friendsgiving specifically. It already has traction.
Right.
Very informal way. People already celebrate Friendsgiving. And when I say a lot of people, I mean in the millions. Already doing it in some way. I mean, sort of the reason that we picked the Tuesday before Thanksgiving is because just when you would go back to college, like that was the crazy night out that you'd go out with your friends.
Absolutely.
Just have a great time. And so all over the world, all over the country, there are people that are already doing this with their friends, but it's not formalized. And again, for us, podcast is 3 parts: maintaining friendships, tradition part. That's the third pillar of it, because we believe that's the easiest way to maintain the friend.
So what if in the Friendsgiving basket, Matt and Jim, we had a little trophy, man of the year, woman of the year, person of the year, kind of and then every Friendsgiving they would give it, just a starting off point.
And how about friend of the year?
Friend of the year.
Friend of the year. Yes, exactly.
It's not gender specific.
Yes. Right.
No, it isn't. But we could make up a little trophy, and you could buy, 4, 5, 6, 10, hopefully 20, and you send them to different friends of your life, saying, "You're the friend of the year because you did this for me," or you allowed me to share a tough time with you, and I appreciate our friendship. Just say the things we think, and don't say often enough.
Love it. And I also, Karo and I had told our fans that we would build them trophies. Anybody who had a group that they wanted a trophy for.
Yep. Good idea. I'm privileged to be part of a group of friends. I'm the youngest in that group of friends by at least a dozen years. And what I love about this group of people is they're like I say, a half a generation older, the most wonderful group of people. We get together a couple of times a year, and they've taught me so much about being free to express yourself, talking about tough subjects. We go down to spring training every year and go down for a weekend. We'd have good food, a lot of good wine. And one dinner we'd talk about baseball, and the other dinner we'd have just different subjects that weren't baseball, but were just personal. And one time someone asked a question about the role that their father played in their life. And I'm going to tell you, it got emotional. We went around a table. It was just wonderful for people to talk about it. Good stories and really tough, sad stories, but we shared. And last time we convened, I raised a question about faith. And I confess that I wish I had a strong faith. And in the group, people I thought were very spiritual and very faith-filled, turned out they weren't. And we talked about how it impacts our life, how we think about the end of life. And I tell you, it's so therapeutic to have this group of 10 guys. Like I say, I'm the youngest. They're just so accomplished and thoughtful and so willing to express themselves and be there for one another. It's just a gift to have friends like that. And I get the sense that you guys very much appreciate that your group is a gift for each of you.
Beyond, I mean, we've jokingly come to the conclusion now that the friendship is the trophy. You know, we built this giant trophy, and it turns out the friendship was the trophy the whole time. I mean, that's the thing. And I lost my dad a couple of years ago, and my friends were there for me. And it's just, that was when I really started realizing that, you know, these relationships are hopefully going to be around for 50 years, and we're going to, you know, it's not just going to be about golf and baseball and all that stuff. Get older.
Those are all the excuses for getting together, right?
Yeah. And those are the ways to unlock all the rest of the stuff.
Yes. Tell me, how do you guys think about Valentine's Day?
Take my wife out on the 14th and my mistress out on the 15th. Is that what you were asking?
No, it just tells us the over and under how long this relationship will last. But being a florist, I can tell you a lot of stories.
No. My wife and I have a very great relationship, as you saw from my 8-month-old sweet boy. But so are you talking about relationship with friends and like a Valentine's Day in relation to friendship, or?
Well, I mean, it's a different day where you celebrate relationships. You know, as a grandfather now, I send a box of we have a brand called Cheryl's Cookies, and I send each of my grandkids' families, each of the 3 families, a box of Valentine cookies from Cheryl's to each family. And it's just another excuse to reach out and express love and affection, not just to my wife, but to my 3 girlfriends and my kids and my grandkids. So, and that's what we try and emphasize here. It's not, yes, it's all about the romance, love, yes, but it goes way beyond that. And it's just another calendared excuse to express yourself to people. And for me, when my mother was alive, I'd always send her something. Most of the time, she'd be working in one of our shops, but I made sure to express myself to a lot of people in my life on Valentine's Day.
You know, I actually, it's funny you say that, because I realize now to do that, and I didn't really quite realize what it was in terms of I send flowers to my mom and my aunt, now my sister and my sister-in-law. And when my wife's grandmother passed, she mentioned at the funeral that I had sent flowers. I was the one who sent flowers to her every year. And I was like, I just I didn't think that much about it either way, but obviously, like, it meant a lot to my wife it meant a lot to her grandmother. And I just, you kind of just don't even realize, again, it's these things that you do that are small and they have a big impact. And I do think, sending flowers to the non-spouse first too.
Now there's a Galentine's Day where gals get together proximate to Valentine's Day to say there's love of all different kinds.
We talked about that. We did an episode, right, where we did I think it started in England, right? Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, there was right, for men.
Well,
that sounds a little forced.
That one was a stretch. I don't think that's catching on.
Well, I know you have an 8-month-old about to come back into your life here in beautiful Santa Barbara. I appreciate you guys spending time with us today. It's a subject it's fun, but it's serious, and I get the impression you have a big impact on a lot of people's lives, and you should take great comfort in that. Yes, it's an excuse for you guys to get together and keep your relationship strong, and the byproduct of that is you're doing something really good for a lot of other people, and I commend you for that, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and ideas with us today. And I think I'd like to make a nomination of two guys that I've just met who I think are in contention for Man of the Year every year. So thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a very tough trophy to get your hands on, but I appreciate your vote. That doesn't count at our Luger's dinner, but we appreciate it anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There's no day like a birthday. It's a time to celebrate. Every year, every wish that brought you to this point. Wrapped in birthday love, toasting a future as bright as the moment before you. The best gift is each other.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim1800Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.